I loved this movie and I loved the story. It was the first time I'd heard this story. George, what do you think is the heart of it? What do you hope people will take away from this film?
Well, I think films like this are sports films, and I like sports films, and it's always the underdog and all of that kind of stuff. But I also love the idea that, you know, it tells you that you can, from wherever you start, it depends on how you make your own way. You can do extraordinary things every day. Ordinary people do extraordinary things, and that's what was the story of this film. And you know, these guys were Depression era kids.
George put his cast through their paces, training for months on the water.
The rowing itself looked grueling. George, did you warn these guys what they were getting themselves into?
I didn't even tell them. I'll tell you this way, there was a disaster when they first started rowing. It was a disaster, but they figured it out. But I'll tell you another thing that was tricky, and you'll know this because there's a bunch of, rowing's huge in Australia too. But when they actually row, maybe they row 2-3 hours, train, and then the races, a few minutes. When we're shooting, these guys are in a boat for 10, 11 hours of rowing. So we're killing them. I mean, they're just, and we're like, do it again.
The hardest part was going a kilometre and then coming back.
Yeah.
Against the wind. Again, yeah.
You didn't have a stunt double?
No, or a towboat. It could have been a towboat.
No, you get nothing.
So on the 10th take, were you ready to murder George?
No, yeah, because George was on the speedboat going by like.
Not only that, they're in short shorts.
I've seen you on Lake Como. You look glamorous.
They're in
They always look glamorous.
They're in short shorts and like a tank top, and I've got a parka and a hat. And I was
and you're just shouting at them.
And a megaphone. I was
do it better.
The Washington boat has taken the lead. Washington has done it.
I got 9 seconds under the course record.
Olympic year this year.
Olympic year? I didn't realize.
Joel Edgerton plays the team's rowing coach, but it's Callum Turner from Fantastic Beasts who delivers a star-making performance here as rower Joe Rance.
Callum, you're back to brunette now. I don't know if it was the blonde hair, but I was really getting like Ryan Gosling, Notebook flashbacks here. I hope in this movie, I hope that's a compliment.
It's always a compliment. Notebook's one of my favourite movies, and that movie makes me cry.
Did you know? I'll tell you a funny story. You want to hear a funny? You want to hear a funny story about
Love
that
to
movie?
hear a funny story.
I was supposed to do that movie 10 years before with Paul Newman.
Wow.
And Paul Newman was going to play me as an older guy.
Wow.
And Paul and I worked on it, and then we went out and had a beer. And I went home that night and I watched Cool Hand Luke, which I love. And I'm watching Cool Hand Luke, he was like my age in that film. And I woke up the next morning, I called Paul and I go, we can't play the same person. We don't look anything alike.
So George, you're telling me you turned down the Notebook?
Well, worse than that. I wasn't even right for the Notebook.
Oh,
but
any regrets?
No regrets. You get the parts you're supposed to get.
Yeah.
Along the way.
I mean, that was such a huge moment for Ryan Gosling. He became a heartthrob after that. I mean, George named People's Sexiest Man Alive.
Two times.
I mean, have you got any advice for Callum?
I'm working on the...
We want more for George.
We have a magazine in the States called the AARP, which is the Associated a Retired Persons Magazine. And I've been lobbying for the sexiest man still alive.
So you're actor, director, philanthropist, father. You're juggling a lot. How do you get the balance right? And what comes first in the pecking order?
The kids come last. I think that's important. Would you say that?
About you.
Yeah, that's important.
We'll geo-block this in Australia.
Well, you understand. In Australia, you guys understand. Look, you don't ever get the balance completely right. One time it's too much of one thing, and one time it's too much of another. I think everybody would agree they have all those same issues, and you just figure it out. I'm having a really fun time. We've been spending our time in France, and we've had a really fun time watching our kids learn French at 6 years old. They speak French and Italian fluently. Wow. So guess who doesn't?
They're going to be talking about you behind your back.
That's all they do. I'll be sitting there. Italian was their first thing, and they'll be like, "Hey, Papa Stranzo," and I'm like, "What? What'd you say?"
What do you say?
It's a disaster. All of it's fun though, and when your chosen profession is this, which is kind of a job that you don't have to grow up so much in, I feel very lucky and very blessed I get to keep doing it. So as long as I get to, somebody keeps hiring me, I'll keep coming to work.
Do the kids have any idea how cool Mum and Dad are yet?
I tell them every day. No, they don't get it. Like somebody the other day at school told them, they're 6, and they said, your parents are famous. And they came back and they're like, "What's famous?" And I go, "What are you talking about?" And they go, My friend says, you guys are famous. I'm like, yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about.
On camera and off camera, George is beaming at the moment, and he's got every reason to be happy. He is by far one of the loveliest people I've ever interviewed. His movie, The Boys in the Boat, is out on the 4th of January.